These are two massive islands, sitting just 22 kilometers apart, that have never, in the entire span of human existence, been connected by land. This is the story of why New Zealand's North and South Islands remain forever separated, despite being close enough that on a clear day you can see across the water between them. Most people assume that during the ice ages, when sea levels dropped dramatically around the world, there must have been a land bridge connecting New Zealand's major islands. After all, that's what happened between Britain and Europe, between Asia and North America, between Australia and Tasmania. But New Zealand is different, and the reason why reveals something profound about the hidden continent beneath our feet that most people don't even know exists. Let me take you back 85 million years ago. The world map looked nothing like it does today. There was this massive southern supercontinent called Gondwana, and a huge chunk of it was about to break away. This wasn't just any chunk. This was Zealandia, a continental mass nearly 5 million square kilometers in size. That's roughly the size of India. But here's the thing. Today, 94% of Zealandia sits beneath the waves of the Pacific Ocean. The only parts sticking above water, New Zealand, New Caledonia, and a few other tiny islands. Now, when continents break apart, they don't do it cleanly. They stretch, they thin, they crack in complex patterns. And one of those cracks, formed between 20 and 30 million years ago, would become Cook Strait, the body of water separating New Zealand's North and South Islands. But wait, you might be thinking. Even if the strait formed millions of years ago, surely during the ice ages when sea levels dropped by 120 to 130 meters, the islands must have connected. This is where things get really interesting. Cook Strait isn't just some shallow channel. At its deepest point, it plunges to 140 meters below the surface. The average depth across the strait is 128 meters. Do the math. Even when ice sheets locked up enormous volumes of Earth's water and oceans retreated worldwide, Cook Strait remained flooded. Always. The Maori, who arrived in New Zealand around 700 years ago, have stories about the creation of Cook Strait. In their tradition, the demigod Maui fished up the North Island, while the South Island was his canoe. The strait was always there in their worldview, a fundamental part of the landscape, not some recent development. European explorers had their own confusion about the strait. When Abel Tasman arrived in 1642, he wasn't even sure if it was a strait or just a large bay. It took James Cook in 1770 to confirm and map what the Maori had always known. These islands were eternally separated. But why is Cook Strait so deep when the islands are so close? This brings us to one of the most violent geological boundaries on Earth. New Zealand doesn't just sit on one tectonic plate, it straddles the collision zone between the Pacific plate and the Australian plate. These massive slabs of Earth's crust are grinding against each other at a rate of 40 millimeters per year. That might not sound like much, but over millions of years, it's reshaping the entire landscape. This tectonic boundary doesn't run in a straight line. It takes a complex path through New Zealand, and right where Cook Strait sits, something interesting happens. The type of plate interaction changes. To the north, one plate slides beneath the other. To the south, they collide head-on, pushing up the southern Alps. Cook Strait sits in a transition zone where the crust is being pulled apart. This extension, this rifting, is part of what keeps the strait deep and the islands separated. Dr. Nick Mortimer from GNS Science, one of the leading researchers on Zealandia, puts it this way. Zealandia is not a collection of islands and fragments, but a coherent 4.9 million square kilometre continent. Think about that. New Zealand isn't just some random islands, it's the visible peaks of a massive drowned continent. And Cook Strait, it's a fundamental feature of that continent's geology, not some temporary water-filled valley. The implications of this permanent separation are profound. It's created two distinct worlds just 22 kilometers apart. The plants and animals on each island have evolved separately for millions of years. Sure, birds can fly across, and some species can raft on debris. But for most land-dwelling creatures, that strait might as well be 1,000 kilometers wide. The winds that funnel through Cook Strait are legendary. For 110 days each year, they exceed 100 kilometers per hour. The strait is one of the most dangerous waterways in the world, earning respect from modern ferry captains just as it did from Polynesian navigators centuries ago. These aren't conditions that create land bridges. These are conditions that carve deeper channels. Today, over 1 million passengers travel between the islands each year by ferry. Engineers have proposed tunnels, bridges, all sorts of connections. But the geology that keeps these islands apart also makes such projects extraordinarily challenging. We're not talking about bridging some passive gap. We're talking about building across one of Earth's most active tectonic boundaries. GNS Science describes the Cook Strait region as one of the most tectonically active areas in New Zealand. That activity isn't slowing down. If anything, the forces that created the strait are still at work. The Pacific Plate continues its relentless push. The strait might even be slowly widening, though at geological timescales that make it imperceptible to human observation. What fascinates me most about this story is how it challenges our assumptions. We're used to thinking of ice ages as times when land bridges appeared and islands connected. That's the story almost everywhere else on Earth. But New Zealand breaks the rules. It always has. Some early European theorists, lacking modern geological knowledge, proposed that the islands must have been recently separated. They couldn't explain the distinct flora and fauna any other way. The Moriori people of the Chatham Islands, located 800 kilometers east of New Zealand, have legends about their ancestors walking from the mainland. Scientifically impossible, but it shows how humans instinctively expect lands to connect. The recognition of Zealandia as a continent only happened in 2017. For decades before that, geologists debated whether these scattered islands and underwater plateaus constituted a coherent continental mass. Modern seafloor mapping and satellite gravity data finally proved what some had long suspected. There's a hidden continent down there, and New Zealand is just its mountain peaks poking above the waves. This revelation reframes everything about Cook Strait. It's not a channel between two random islands that happen to be close together. It's a fundamental geological feature of the Zealandia continent, as permanent and significant as the mountain ranges on dry land. Climate change adds another chapter to this story. As sea levels rise, Cook Strait will deepen further. Any fantasy of future connection becomes even more impossible. The forces of geology and climate work in the same direction here, toward greater separation, not connection. Yet humans persist in connecting what geology has separated. Submarine cables carry electricity across the strait. Fiber optic lines transmit data. Ferries maintain lifelines of commerce and travel. We've accepted that these islands will never naturally connect, so we've built our own connections over and through the violent waters. The story of why New Zealand's islands have never connected is really a story about deep time and hidden continents. It's about tectonic forces so powerful they can keep lands apart for tens of millions of years, even when they're close enough to see each other. It's about how our planet's history is written, not just in what we can see, but in what lies beneath the waves. Those 22 kilometers of water between New Zealand's North and South Islands aren't just a gap, they're a window into Earth's dramatic past and dynamic present. They remind us that not all separations are temporary. Some divisions are written into the very structure of our planet, permanent features that shape evolution, culture, and history. The next time you look at a map of New Zealand, don't see two islands that happen to be close together. See the peaks of a hidden continent, forever separated by forces that began their work when dinosaurs still roamed the Earth. See Cook Strait not as a barrier to be overcome, but as evidence of the incredible power of geological processes that continue to shape our world today. These islands have never touched in human memory, never connected in the age of mammals, never bridged since before the extinction of the dinosaurs. And they never will. That's not a failure of proximity. That's the success of geology, writing its story across millions of years in water, wind, and stone.